Welcome to Radiant in Real Life. I'm your host, Beth Medley, and we are a community of women focused on becoming radiant in life, leadership, and the pursuit of Jesus. I'm so excited you're here. Guys, today we are going to be talking about getting unstuck, okay? So have you ever felt stuck? Like you're just trying to move forward and something is keeping you like emotionally trapped where you are for some reason. So I work with a lot of individuals as a coach, and most of the time they're the builders, right? I've talked to you about that a little bit before. I think they're working on building a business, a ministry, a nonprofit. They're doing big things. And when we do big things, there's often a little bit of friction because it causes us to grow. And so we're going to be uncomfortable, and it's just kind of part of all of that wonderful growing pains. That's what it's called, guys. Growing pains. Anyway, so something that I end up talking about people a lot with are core values, or really we have two sets of values if we're talking about our personal values. And values aren't something that we necessarily like identify a lot, especially when we're talking about on a personal level. Like we might say things like, well, faith is important to me, or I value integrity. And we see a lot of this being really vague, especially when we talk about business core values, because we use these weird, just like vague words, like I said, like integrity and excellence. But like, what does that even mean? So oftentimes when we're really trying to figure out who we are and we find ourselves emotionally stuck, it's because we have a big gap between our high values and our core or functional values. So our high values are a set of values that we say we believe. We say we believe them. We want to believe them. It's like a part of who we want to be, right? But our functional values or our core values are actually how we are. This is not like what we're aspiring to be. This is like what's actually happening in our life. So one of the great like Christianese kind of core value examples I give is a high value is that I believe that God is my provider, right? A core value, functionally, what I actually believe is that I will never have enough because I'm worried about paying my rent every month, or I'm worried about how I'm gonna replace the tires on my car, things like that, right? So high value, God's my provider. I believe it all day long, but actually, functionally, that's not really true to what I'm walking out in my life. That's not what I behave. One that I use that's not so Christianese, that pretty much everybody can relate to on some level, is like high value, especially if you are a high achiever. High value, I am awesome. Like I'm amazing. And we even like sing, Snoop Dogg affirmation song, like I'm totally awesome, right? Like, so this is what we say we believe, but then functionally, I don't take care of myself. I don't prioritize my wellness. I eat junk all the time compulsively. I don't pay attention to my feelings, or I just push through because actually, functionally, I really believe that I'm completely unworthy. And so these things kind of sneak attack us, and they like sneak in behind us because we think that we're really emotionally healthy, and we're like, yeah, I totally believe that I'm awesome, but really what we act out in our functional values doesn't align. So as we are trying to move forward and getting traction, these core values are really keeping us back. So when we really are able to like look at what we really are functionally believing, what are we behaving, then we can actually have some power to try to close the gap between these two things. So the more sanctified you become, the more you become who God made you to be, the less of a gap there's going to be between these two things. So we're going to start bringing that high value down deep into your heart to be a functional value, a core value. So even though, like, yes, I believe God is my provider, and do I still worry sometimes about finances? Yes, I absolutely do. But I can tell you that I don't worry about it constantly, or that if I am having those feelings, it's just a minute and then it's gone. So, but that's happening for me because I've spent years taking this high value and building new neural pathways in my brain to really be able to make that real for me, and partnering with the Holy Spirit in that. So we want to be able to renew our mind so that we can start believing truth about ourselves. So part of that is speaking truth, hearing truth constantly. Like, what are you feeding yourself? What are you feeding your mind? Because we are consuming content almost always. Literally last night in my small group, I had somebody, I had one person, we have a lot of parents in there, and one person was talking about how they have such a hard time. We're always overstimulated because there's never any quiet time. And so hearing from God is really hard because there's like never ever quiet. And they just really crave that quiet time with God. And I had another person, and she's pregnant with her first kiddo, but she was talking about how she can't stand the quiet. Like, she's constantly feels like she has to have music on or a podcast or something. And we talk about how sometimes we use God to get away from God. Like, we start consuming this great, amazing, wonderful content, but if you're using that to replace God's voice in your life, then there's a problem. And that's really what we do sometimes, because taking a look at what we really believe can be kind of sobering and humbling and convicting. And it's okay, like, for it to be those things, because it will never get better if we don't actually take a look at it. And God is not going to love you more than he loves you right now in this moment, exactly where you are. And I'm not going to either, So like, take that shame off that the enemy is trying to put on you when we're looking at this. Because that is the first thing he's going to do, is he's going to try to shame you for what you're acting out, what you're functionally believing. Because if you don't know what you believe, you can't change what you believe. So that's really why we want to make sure we're taking a look at this stuff. So how can we close that gap for you this week? Let's pick one thing that you feel like the Lord is leading you to change, and let's start putting together a plan for you to speak truth over yourself, for you to be around others that are going to speak truth to you, and make sure you share it with somebody that's safe. Because if we don't share these things with our community, how can we ever really expect them to change? We're designed for community. We need people in our life that are not going to judge us for where we are, but that aren't going to let us stay there either. They're going to pray over us. They're going to pray into us, and just believe in us and believe for us. So if you don't have faith that this can change for you, borrow some of mine and find yourself some good community, and you're always welcome in mine. Thank you for listening to our episode today. Hit that subscribe button and leave us a review. So I have one last question before you go. How are you going to radiate this week? In life, in leadership, or in your pursuit of Jesus?